Oh, of course, it's not going to have my webcam. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. I'm Sam I Am. Welcome to the Lifeboat live stream. Didn't have a picture there in the beginning, and I'm hitting the wrong buttons here because the webcam is being used by Zoom. As you can see, I've got, I always want to say Alex Holmes, but Alex Saunders from Nuggets News joining us for another State of the Union crypto speech. I don't know what the right word is for it, but we're going to talk all things Ethereum, Bitcoin. Alex, you kind of sent me down the rabbit hole a little bit with a couple of videos that you did in the last 2 weeks. Welcome to the show, by the way.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on again, Sam. I think this is our third time going down the rabbit hole and trying to convince each other about the others' interests.
The others' projects. Yeah, I love it. These are great. And I think the audience, this is the first one that we've done live. It looks like with the new video card that I've got, I'm good here. Have to apologize to my audience. I went surfing. I'm
going to bring it up here as well.
Okay. I went surfing earlier today, took what was supposed to be a short nap and slept through my premiere. So I wasn't there in the chat to talk with everybody. Apologize to you guys. But anyway, you published a couple of videos on kind of DeFi and what's happening in that space. And it kind of convinced me to look into some of these projects. And there are some people in the XRP community that are also paying attention to this space. And one of the projects that they really, really liked and have been trying to get me to look at for a long time is the Reserve Protocol. Now you say you're vaguely familiar with that, but I went in and, read their white paper, watched videos on it, looked at pretty much every page on their website. I'll probably, anyway, so I put a video together explaining it. After doing that, I realized, okay, I think this is going to be an important project down the road. And it's a stablecoin project, a lot like, some of the other ones that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. But it's got some important differences. So they're starting out fairly centralized with a US dollar backed stablecoin. They're trying to achieve parity with the dollar. And then they have a phase 2 where they decentralize some of the decisions. It's not based on one stablecoin. It's based on a basket of stablecoins. So immediately what pops into my mind is this is a decentralized version of the SDR. Are you familiar with the SDR?
Yeah, the special drawing right, which is a basket of the most commonly used currencies around the world. The top 5, is it?
Yes. So the yuan, the pound, the dollar, and one or two others, but it's a fixed ratio. They adjust it every 5 years. It's just been a total flop. Nobody is using it in the way that they intended to create it. And here they have something where they're going to dynamically adjust it, turn it over to the community eventually. And then what really caught my attention is the third phase of the project, where they actually want to move away from, parity with the dollar and just try and maintain value. And the way they're going to do that is incorporating any kind of tokenized asset. So you could have commodities, you could have stocks, bonds, cryptocurrency, any of these things. And they want to make sure that it's geographically distributed, that the community is in charge of it. I don't know what happens to this organization after they do this. Do they cease to exist? That's a question that I still have. But they have certainly some very big names behind it. Peter Thiel, a lot of the other early PayPal guys. You've got Arrington XRP Capital, who's an XRP investor. One of the market makers for the first market maker actually that invested in Ripple is also invested in this project. So it's got some powerful names behind it. And so as I am looking into this, I guess my thinking on it is Ripple has been, and this is in context of what threat does this pose to Ripple and XRP and what they're trying to do. So let me say, first off, I think they're really, they've got the in, right? Like they've been working with these banks for 5 years. They've been through trials with them. They're comfortable with each other. They've been talking to all the right people and in all the right circles and that sort of thing. Like, I don't see the banks jumping ship for DeFi. However, what this reserve protocol, in my mind, the threat that it poses is it almost threatens to make the banks irrelevant. Now, that's not happening anytime soon by any means, but it can do all of the same, money transfers. It can do, it can store the value. It's,
I mean,
what do you think?
I've read all the reserve stuff as well a long time ago. So you've sort of jogged my memory. And to be honest, that's probably one of only a couple of dozen interesting projects. And there's a lot that are doing similar things, and some projects that are further ahead already towards that process. So
which ones would you think are further or leading the space anyway?
So just this morning, we had USDC announce that they've blacklisted or frozen the accounts of some. Did you read this? So USDC is one of the centralized stablecoins, obviously. They've blacklisted or frozen some accounts. And this is a big, important point, because it shows you that accounts can be frozen. And then the DAI that Maker have and Synthetics have a synthetic US dollar coin.
Yep.
So I think that this is so bullish for the decentralized stablecoin project, which is what I've been saying all along.
Yes.
What we've already got now from Maker and Synthetics is the ability to have other assets backing up the stablecoin, rather than, so they started off with just pegging $1 to $1 in a bank. Then you had things like Ethereum, and then they added, I think it was basic attention token, 0x token. But what we've got with some of these other projects now, and in the world of DeFi, is people experimenting with what you can actually back to create a stable coin. And we've had someone tokenize their car. So it was only like a $4,000 car, nothing too flashy. And now we've got people tokenizing real estate.
But that's it's a depreciating asset. I mean, like,
it's a loan that you can pay back, so you can put up things as collateral. Basically, that's the way to think about it.
Yeah. All right.
We've got things like domain names. So nuggetsnews.eth. You've probably seen all these .cryptos as well.
Yeah.
If people know that that's valuable, I can start to use anything that is digital or tokenized as collateral for a loan or collateral to mint stable coins. And that's when you go down the road of what Reserve are doing, where they ultimately want to have property and everything. And then it kind of gets to this philosophical question of what is value. And I think that's where it gets a bit wishy-washy. If you're not going to peg to a dollar or a currency, like what are you saying is the actual value? Or how do you stabilize that if you keep adding property from different parts of the world? Like, what is one unit or one reserve worth compared to other things? I think that's where it gets really wishy-washy.
Well, I think I think eventually it's going to be so complex that it's going to be some kind of decentralized AI that's actually answering that question. Like, I think it's too complicated for, like the community to vote on. Maybe the community would tweak the parameters of the AI that's driving this, but you're right. How do you maintain value, and how do you measure that value? Gold would be a factor in there in my mind, but then you've also got, everything. It's a very intriguing question. And how are these communities going to answer that going forward?
And I should probably explain. So I've been doing a lot about stablecoins and DeFi for a couple of years now. And what I want people to understand is that this huge boom in stablecoins is massive competition for the US dollar, because it's just the payment rails are so much better. Anyone with a smartphone anywhere in the world can download an app and they can get stablecoins. You or I can send them US dollars. So we're replacing bank accounts of the unbanked, or we're unbanking the people that are already banked. So big or small, we've now got scaling solutions, which I think I sent you some of the links. So Loop Ring is one of the scaling solutions on Ethereum. So we now have instant free transactions on layer 2. And so that's big competition for the banks. So I think banks, their days are numbered, but it's also central banks. Their days are numbered. And at the moment, we've got government that are running huge deficits and spending, and they can kind of create money and spend it into existence as well. So they're the three that can loosely create money. And now some economists argue that that's banks can't create money, it's loans, and government can't create money, that's debt. But that's basically how you can spend or create money into existence. So at the moment, everyone wants US dollars around the world because it's the safe haven when markets are crashing or whatever. It's the world reserve currency. That's all changing. The US have got huge debts and deficits. I'm sure your viewers know all about that. And the next stage after that is, well, if you're going to keep printing trillions of these, then what is more scarce? And that's when you go into your gold and your silver and things like Bitcoin. That's become its main value prop because it's really fallen behind DeFi in terms of payments and micropayments, that type of thing.
Okay, you want to keep going, or
I was going to say just to finish that thought, the philosophical thought process about reserve and these other stable coins that are going to be backed by things that you can't really put your finger on. Then you're saying, well, what's the value of all the real estate in the world or all the property in the world? If you have a gold mine and you find another huge amount of gold or oil, or you build a new suburb with all these expensive houses, how do you know when it goes from 200 trillion to 201 trillion as the reserve or the value of everything that it's trying to sort of float against? That's where I think it gets really messy. And maybe you're saying AI and things, but you go back to the problem of oracles. How do you get information from the real world into the digital world? I just think it's way too wishy-washy.
Well, and you're familiar with the milkshake theory, I assume. Okay,
I've got my digital thick shake theory that's a bit different. But.
Okay. Now I haven't heard that. I need to go. You'll have to send me a link to it. But I think that's what we're going to see. I think, like the US dollar is going to get stronger and stronger as it's crashing economies around the world. And then it all floods back in and the dollar is done essentially. And then somewhere in this process, they're going to roll out whatever their new system is. Now, there's a famous guy that dropped some pictograms that suggested they're going to keep fiat, but it's going to become gold backed, and I think that would be partially gold backed. Doubt you'll be able to go in and redeem it for an ounce of gold or anything like that because it would empty out the treasury, and they'd have to, we'd have sound money. That's not happening. But and with what you said there, that's really what I kind of thought about as far as the threat to Ripple. Like they're in with the banks and that's moving forward. The banks are dragging their feet and being so stupid about this that they are putting themselves at risk. Because are you familiar with Crossing the Chasm and the whole Jeffrey Moore book and technological adoption?
The S-curve.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and the idea that you have early adopters, and then you reach this chasm and you have to establish a beachhead, throw everything at that, be successful, and then bridge out into the early adopters and then the early majority and so forth from there. I think the risk is if they don't get their shit together and get moving on this new paradigm with Ripple, and I'm talking about the traditional banking system, they run the risk of letting a project like Reserve or any of the dozen other ones getting that beachhead established, and it's game over at that time. However, I think we also have to take into consideration crypto is what, 200 billion. That's a big number, but Swift, they're moving $4, $5, $6 trillion a day. So we're talking a little leaguer going into the Major League Baseball, and it's like they've got a lot of growing to do before they get there and pose a serious threat. What would you say to that?
I mean, honestly, so I know people get the downvotes out when I say that this is why I've been so bullish on DeFi all along, and the whole XRP value prop. I never saw it clicking in the real world because I knew what DeFi were doing, and we've already seen countries like Argentina and Venezuela where the make or die stablecoin has really taken off. Now, some people, if you're trying to store value, then Bitcoin is more scarce than your hyperinflating currency. But most people that want to do business and that they need that dollar, the US dollar to them is like gold in these countries. So I do see longer term that milkshake theory. My digital theory is pretty simple. It just says that all these digital cryptos and payment rails create thousands of little straws. And no longer do you have these swap lines with the feds and banks trying to get loans of each other and saying, no, we're not lending. We're trying to up our reserves because we're worried about crashing. All that money is going to be sloshing around the world through the digital rails and make the old system seem like a thick shake in comparison.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's brilliant. I could see that coming.
So the other thing that you said, I mean, recently, I think Visa the other day, they announced that they're hiring engineers and they want them to be familiar with Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP.
Yes.
And to me, I know this is probably the thing I'm kind of cop the most hate for saying. As you said, Ripple and XRP have thrown everything at this for years, and Ethereum have thrown nothing at this. They market themselves poorly compared to Tron or Ripple XRP. And here they are. Their product is just their product speaks for itself. That's why it's getting traction and getting in these. That's why bonds are on Ethereum. That's why Australian Central Bank is doing their stablecoin on Ethereum.
Okay.
It's all happening on Ethereum.
Okay. Yes, I agree with you there, but it's minor leagues. It's not scaling yet. Now we have all the Ethereum 2.0 stuff, and that's what, weeks away at this point?
There's two camps. So Ethereum has already got a lot of scaling on layer 1 and layer 2, which is taking it to thousands per second. But then you've got Ethereum 2.0, which is a brand new chain altogether, which is months from launching, but years from completion.
Okay. So
just quickly, the other point you said about stable coins and the value of Forex versus our little league, 200 billion. Tether was the only coin and it had about $1 billion market cap a year or so ago. Now it's gone 10x to about 10 billion. But you see, on the busy days, this does 10 billion or more in 24-hour volume. So it's not like, when people say, oh, there's trillions a day. Well, if we do another 10x in the next 12 months and then the one after that, which I think is very doable, we can be at $1 trillion stablecoin valuation doing multiple trillions of dollars a day in 24-hour volume, and that's only 24 months away. That's very doable.
But I don't see businesses trusting Tether of all stable coins. I mean, maybe Circle because they've got better auditing, but
oh yeah, sorry, I should clarify. I don't mean Tether. I mean all the others that are growing. I mean all the stable US dollar stable coins.
Well, okay. So the risk that I see with stable coins is the counterparty risk. You've got the underlying asset, the dollar or whatever it is, and then you've got the issuing institution, and that's where I think something like Reserve creating a basket of stable coins in the beginning is such a profound idea. And then eventually adding in some of these other assets, because as we, progress through the end game of fiat currency, I think this is absolutely where it's going. Value is going to be stored on the blockchain in these various cryptos. And with the ability to slosh back and forth, nobody's going to keep their value in fiat. And that's going to cause demand to absolutely plummet. And then they're say goodbye to the endless wars and all the other crap that the state does. And they are going to get to redefine themselves to operate on 20% of their current budget is kind of my thinking on it. What do you think about that?
That's definitely where I was going before. With the end stage is not stable coins. It is the scarce currencies, the hardest money. And it's the people's money that's controlled by us.
Yeah.
That's where I do think it is the Bitcoins and the Ethereums, if they can keep decentralizing. And we don't want 60% of mining in China and all those problems that people talk about. The most important thing that I'm going to talk about today that I want people, because I don't think that the XRP community understand this at all.
Okay.
What's going on with DeFi? 2 projects, I think I might have seen one of them. So M Stable already has that basket of stable coins.
Okay.
Curve Finance is another one. And what's exploding in DeFi world is these liquidity pools. So you have the DEXes, the decentralized exchanges, where you and I can swap one token for another. Now they can also incentivize people to put in liquidity. So I might put in some Ethereum and some stable coins. Oh, you're bringing some up now. Cool. So that's so 1 inch is a DEX aggregator that gets volume, liquidity and volume and trading from all the other DEXes. So these are the things where I hear like Ripple's going to do on-demand liquidity and these banks have to keep XRP. None of that matters. These DEXes are all just pulling from everywhere and you can swap anything for anything.
Mm-hmm.
And now we've got the scaling, the instant free transactions. So we're just putting these Lego pieces together, and we're just waiting for more people to catch on and learn how good this technology is.
Uh-huh.
Now, at the moment, the yield farming, the thing that's exploded and got all this attention,
I think
these
that's
different DEXes and it's very cool.
I think that is the ICO craze 2.0. Like, and I looked
100%.
Okay, so I looked at this curve, compound right here, and it was great, but people were buying into that because of their token that they were issuing, and they were borrowing money with no intended use case other than to get this free token. So because it was going up because of the craze, and like now the interest rates have plummeted 0.3% for Ethereum. Most of them are 0.12 for REP and so forth. So like, to me, that bubble blew up and popped, and I don't know what the real rates are going to be. I think they will come and they will be better than the traditional finance system with greater and greater adoption. I mean, what do you think?
Oh yeah. So that was definitely a bubble the other day, and even the 100% itself. It wasn't just the 100% there was a bubble. There's layers of risk. So these guys are paying you fees if you provide liquidity, but they're also giving you their native token, and it's a governance token. In future, the token holders will vote to give themselves fees as owners of the protocol. So they're trying to bootstrap the network and get attention and marketing. So it kind of works, but now they're all competing for each other. And I agree that the interest rates are going to settle down somewhere that's higher than traditional finance, but it takes into account things like smart contract risk, liquidity risk, price risk. So that's why you're getting these higher rates, because it's so risky. So people think, 20%, 30%, that's great, but it doesn't last, and it's
crypto.
super risky.
Yeah.
But so tying that all together with once you've got liquidity and incentives, so any bank around the world can provide liquidity to any protocol that can match it with another token, and the Uniswaps of the world and these different DEXes will find a way from the Zimbabwean currency to the Australian dollar. There's these pools, and they provide steeper incentives as the liquidity gets drained. So these are the things that are starting to work.
Okay, but my response to that would be, how have they integrated with the banking infrastructure? Has that step happened? Because I don't see somebody at the bank sitting there logging into one, whatever it is, to some website to do this. It's got to be industrial, commercial grade, and enterprise ready.
So at the moment, the on-ramping is still hard. Like to buy, let's even say Bitcoin or XRP, it's still pretty hard. Now there's some wallets that are getting better, like Argent. Some of these wallets you can now integrate even a credit card number and start to buy stable coins straight away and earn interest, and you don't even know that's on the back end. In the Bitcoin world, there's a company called Zap and Strike that are doing this. So you can use your credit card to pay for things with Lightning, and you don't even know you're using Lightning Network.
We're going to talk about that.
And you can go back. You can go back as well. So that's really cool.
Okay.
But when you say how the bank's preparing to use this,
they're not.
What does a customer do to go into a bank or to log into their online bank? They're just going to press their app to send Sam money in Africa and not know they're using an Ethereum, a DEX, a liquidity provider, and it's done. So it's
okay. At a customer level, sure. At a Fortune 500 company that's moving, the $10 million average transaction, are they going to do that? See, that's
a Fortune 500 company using Zoom to do meetings to work from home until they were forced to do it, until it was a better solution. They can drag their heels all they want, but this is a better product.
Okay, but I don't know about better product. Let me think how to put this. So my objection to the Bitcoin maximalist mindset, and like Pomp has this, Andreas all of them, they have this mindset that the solution is for consumers to change their behavior and start doing things differently, whereas Ripple is plugging into the existing rails to where the money moves today and bridging the divide. Do you see what do you think about the difference in that that mindset and that strategy? Because I see that I we're 10 years into into Bitcoin and still at less than 1% adoption. So like I see everything that you're saying, Alex. At the same time, I'm still like it's 5-10 years away from being consumer friendly and from that being a reality.
I think the, Bitcoin has grown at 10 or 100, let's say 100-fold every 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have these crashes and whatever, because there's people that get rich as the market cap grows, and we're going to a multi-trillion-dollar market cap. So there's no surprise to me the chart has these psychological Wall Street cheat sheet looking sort of booms and busts.
Mm-hmm.
And that's we've accomplished a lot. I mean, how much can we go? Can we go 1,000x every 2 years? No. So that's why, and I actually do think we're only probably 2 or 3 years away to getting to that trillion-dollar, then multi-trillion-dollar, and it really is.
I can see that. Yeah.
You got to remember, 12 months ago, literally the central bank, Mario Draghi, came out and said, crypto stablecoins, too small, not even considering it in our conversations. 12 months later, every central bank in the world is experimenting with stablecoins, ledgers, whatever
Mm-hmm.
it is. So I do think that you can say consumers don't change their behavior, but when an app gets popular and word of mouth that it's better, it's already got 50% adoption. You know, Venmos of the world, Revolut, the Kenyan M-Peso, is it like these things take off like wildfire in the age of social media once people start to talk,
With
whether it's
consumers
TikTok to buy Doge or something else.
Yeah. Well, with consumers, I agree with you. With industry, with in the business to business space, not so much. They're still on SAP, and they're still using the traditional rails. They're going to be much more conservative and not want to jump into the latest craze kind of thing. And that's where, I think they could end up going with Ripple, and they could have a nice little run. I don't. I'm not as certain as you are that DeFi is going to win the day in the near term. Long term, I think we 100% agree.
I think that we've got the Ethereum Enterprise Alliance that have, we've already got Microsoft, Ernst & Young, Reserve, Baseline. These guys have all rolled out their suite of products with the APIs and the SDKs.
Okay.
And when you see the top end of town doing it and the consumer doing it, like, it is going to catch on to some degree. But I just think that more and more of the world and every business, we're going to this sort of digital where more people have their own web-based business or work from home.
Yes.
And you're seeing it in the stock market. There's going to be maybe 5 big companies, and then everyone else is a sort of small business where you've got to know about the best. Can I accept payments and not pay 2% charges?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, great. So I think that middle class is just, and crypto's for the people, and people know they can save money, and it's sort of screw the banks. I mean, it's all well and good for XRP and Ripple be trying to save the banks money and have a better system and these rails, but I just see everyone has a smartphone.
Yep.
It's a digital age. You don't need banks and you don't need the big companies to be using it, really.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that they're ready for that paradigm shift yet. The younger generation, yeah. The older, not so much. And I don't.
So what do we?
I'm not certain it's going to happen as fast as you probably think it will.
I just think you got to remember that 2017 was a crypto bubble, and the space before then was tiny. Like 1 in 1,000 or 10,000 people knew what crypto was before 2017. And when you look how far we've come, and it's on the mainstream, something like Doge can take over on TikTok. And this was something I predicted a few months ago when Dave Poutney, day trader Dave, and Robinhood started to take off. I said the next stage of this bubble is these kids finding out about altcoins, and altcoins move more than Hertz or Tesla. And this is it's a side effect of the Fed printing too much money.
Yeah, it is
a joke, and it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And you say the government's got $1 trillion in the treasury, and the Fed have printed 5 trillion, or you hear these figures, there's 5 trillion in the investment funds on the sidelines, and they miss this run up. And there's all these retail traders that have outperformed them, but there's too much money. So I definitely think that fair value for stocks is probably lower, and property is overvalued in Australia. You can make all the arguments you want and sit there and wait for the markets to crash. But look, today was the first day where I think gold and silver went up. Gold broke 1,800. Crypto's up. Alts are up. There's too much money, and they're worried about deflation. and we might be about to get huge inflation and bubbles in everything.
Yeah, I think it's baked in the cake. How long will they be able to kick the can down the road? Is the analogy I use. You know, like I was back in 2000.
How long do you think they can?
Well, you know, like I thought we were reaching the end of the road in 2010. So that's how wrong I've been, because, you know, the whole 2008 crash happened. That's when I was learning about this stuff, 2007, 2008, listening to Gerald Salente and, you know, that whole host of the financial guys that like really know their stuff and are calling everybody out for their bullshit. And I'm like, oh, this is coming to an end. There's no way. And yet here we are 10 years later and it's like still happening. So I don't know. I think we're in the beginning of the end, like the early stages of collapse. And
the way that I think about it is, if you think of it as like a sausage machine, you put in the money and you try and set taxes at this level and this, that, and the other, and you have an economy and it's meant to all come out and be great for everyone.
Yeah.
Every time they try to put more money in this sausage machine, it is just going to the rich. It's going into the markets.
Yeah.
The bank's reserves are going up, even though they've been told, forget the Volcker rule, you don't even need reserves. All your customers come in on a bank run. What's his name? Powell's on 60 Minutes in America saying, get out of the cash you want, we'll print it. Like, this is nuts.
And the coins have disappeared from the US. I don't know if is that the case over there?
Oh, they're trying to say cash is bad and it's got germs and we're going to phase it out.
Do you know what's happening here? Okay, so our coinage, not the dollars, but the actual coins that you make change with, the Fed's just straight up stopped distributing. Blockchain Backer, who was on, you know, last time you joined our stream with him, he's a coin hunter, a coin roll hunter. So he goes and gets like the $50 or whatever and searches for silver in there. So he would go and get 3 or 4 boxes a day from some of these banks. And now they're telling him, one bank told him they're only giving out 1 roll of each denomination to their business accounts only per day. Another bank said they have $63 in change. The Fed has come up with this narrative that, well, the circulation's just been disrupted and therefore we don't have any change to give out, which I think is utter bullshit. And I think the reason that they're doing that is they're trying to push us away from the cash narrative. We're already seeing businesses that say, well, I can't make change, we're going cashless. So
of course.
I think I
don't think that's a conspiracy at all. I think they're definitely doing that. And I think with inflation, isn't it already the cost of a penny is more in copper or whatever it's made out
3.4 cents. Like, nickels are like 6.8. Yeah. Dimes are 11.4, something like that. I mean, it's insane. Only a government would produce something like that that's cost 3 or 4 times more than its face value.
So what I was going to say with the sausage machine, at the moment, the banks and the rich getting richer, money going into all the assets, the problem that they have, what they're trying to do with a Fed coin or whatever you want to call it, in China, it's the government's coin, not the central bank. Once it's a digital ledger, they can tell everyone you've got to download China app or Fed app. And everyone has their own digital address.
The digital
wallet.
That's
the only way that they can bypass the banks and the payment providers. But then you really risk inflation, because all of a sudden it's not one wealthy guy watching his stocks go up $1,000. It's 100 people in the real community with $10 extra. And you've already seen the price of food spike in America, haven't you? Like last few months.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So when they started giving out these paychecks, it's the same in Australia. We've got people that would work for part-time, casual, $300, $400, $500 a week, and now they're all on $1,500 a week. People are getting more money.
I gave this example to my audience. I'm in this small town. There's literally a dollar store, 2 gas stations, and a restaurant and a grocery store that's owned by the same old man. And I go into that restaurant and chat with the guy's wife or the gal's husband who manages the restaurant. And we were talking about this whole unemployment and what's going on with the $600 a week that they're given to people on unemployment. And he told me out here, he's got a friend that worked for a restaurant and lost his job and is on unemployment. And he's like, he had another restaurant owned by somebody with really deep pockets. So it's not going to go under because he wants to keep it open and we'll just keep paying the bills until things come back. And he had arranged for him to get a job with the general manager that was a friend of his, and the guy wouldn't return her calls. And he said, it's because I'm making more on unemployment. Well, meanwhile, if you look at Yelp, which I don't know if you guys use that down in Australia, but it's a really popular restaurant rating app here for the United States. 53% of the businesses in Yelp have permanently closed. So now you have twice as many cooks looking for half the number of jobs. And sure enough, the general manager that he set this guy up with has left. So now he has no job. His $600 benefit's going to run out next month, and then he has no job to go work to. It's like people are just so stupid and short-minded when it comes to this stuff, and it just creates such a terrible incentive. And that story's the same across salons and you name it. If all these low wage paying jobs, people aren't going back to because they're getting more free money. And then when the herd is ready to go back to work, there's not going to be any work for them. We talked about this a little bit before. I just tweeted out today, I think it's close to a third of U.S. homeowners either completely missed their mortgage payment this month or only paid part of it. The foreclosures from the lockdown are going to be starting to take effect. I don't know if it's going to be this month or next month, but in the next couple months. I tweeted out a video in New York of the food lines that are growing every day, getting several blocks long. They just walk down the line with the cameras. I think it's going to get really, really ugly with everything that's going on. And it's just, oof.
And I completely agree. And I know, like this, my sausage machine example is like, the reason I enjoy it is because people can understand. You put all these ingredients in, and starting a business requires, it's risky. People aren't going to do it in current climate.
No.
It requires innovation. It requires money that people don't have. There's so many reasons why it's so much hard to start a business. They're not going to come back. And if the business does survive, the cafe owner is going to put on 5 staff instead of 20 to see how it goes to begin with. And then a lot of the time they're making 10, 20% margins and it can't even work with 5 unless they've got a full restaurant. So I completely agree that we lived in this age of borrowing from the future and going in debt. And you can go down and start talking about, well, do we have enough food? Overpopulation, the crops, the water, price of oil. There's so many things where I just think about and shake my head. And I live in the bush. Well, not quite in the bush, but out of the way in Tasmania. And I'm sure you're glad that you don't live in the city.
I am.
And I don't want to get into guns and that in America, but that's one thing that I would worry about. And it doesn't matter if you're a good person or a bad person. We've seen already, as soon as the bullets fly or whatever the tweet was, all the rules go out the window once families are hungry. And that's what really worries me.
Yes, absolutely. I did, when all this stuff hit, I did a SHTF shit hit the fan survivalist type show. And I read this blog from a guy named Selko who was in the Bosnian War. And then I also talked to a guy who was a kid lived through that whole thing. And, that's exactly what he talked about. There is no good or bad in that situation. It's all gray. Like, what would you do to feed your kid? I know what I would do, and it's not pretty. And he said, there was constantly changing sides, and it's just, everything's gray because in that environment, you do what you need to survive. And this is why I did that show 2 months ago talking about prepping and, what my audience, what I hope that they would go out and do. And
one thing I would say is that I went full circle. So I went down the rabbit hole about the same time as we were talking about before in the GFC when I lost some money, and I was only 21 at the time and had some shares and became a gold and silver bug, a bit of a conspiracy guy.
I did that too. Yeah.
You've got to find your filter that the earth's not flat and that you don't believe everything you read. You've really got to think critically. And that's when I did my pharmacy degree and found out about Big Pharma from thinking critically. So you've got to have that filter. But one thing I've actually gone back on my full circle trip on was the gold and silver guys, the end of the world guys. You look at how fast things changed, and they'd sold out of seeds, stopped selling ammo in America or whatever it is, and all of a sudden you go, oh shit, those preppers weren't really tin foil when people ran out of canned food or bullets, whatever it was,
Right.
within a couple of days.
Yeah.
And you go, okay, maybe you want to be a little bit crazy in that circumstance.
I held up my box of N95 surgical masks, and I'm like, you know why I have this? Because I bought it when I didn't need it. And now that everybody needs it, I got a whole box right here. You see how this works, folks?
The funny story? So at the pharmacy, I used to work down the back corner of the store, furthest away as you walk in. And all the pharmacist-only medicines are there on the shelf behind the counter. Down the bottom, there's a box of surgical masks. So I worked before I quit and went crypto full-time years ago. There's a box of N95 masks on the bottom of that shelf that gathered dust for the full 6 years that I was there. And the box was probably $2-3 for the box of 100. And if someone wanted to buy one, me and my boss would look at each other and go, are we going to really break this box up? Fine, have one for like 50 cents or 20 cents. And here we are in the middle of COVID. They're selling for $17 in Sydney Airport per mask. And I'm thinking, I'm just thinking about my dusty box back at my store.
Exactly. It's you can't wait because I mean, so I've been on my audience. I'm like, look, I'm continuing to prep. I've actually been out at my farm building a fuel storage shed, and I've talked to them about how we're going to see these tides come in, the tide goes out, and every time it's going to bring the wreckage of what was destroyed in the last grind down for us to go and pick from the beach. So a month or two ago, it was cheap oil. And what else did I got something else like incredibly cheap. So I look for these opportunities and, stock up as much as you can and prepare as much as you can for the next leg down. Because I think that's what we're going to see is this slow. If you look at the stock market, what it did after the 1933 crash, the crash was like this, but then it did this for the next like 2 or 3 years. And I think that, and it was just up and down as in a constant downward trend as you TA guys talk about.
I think the slow bleed is a good analogy, but I don't think it'll look like that on the charts because, it's two separate universes.
Yeah. And one's being completely manipulated by Fed money and so forth. But in terms of, and of course, this is what Zero Hedge, I think, is so brilliant at pointing out. You've got stock market expectations, you've got earnings expectations, and they are parting like the Red Sea.
And that is it's really important, again, for people to be aware that don't get angry about that. This is something a theory I came up with a year or two ago. If you're sitting in the room and you're Jerome Powell, because in 2012 he said that printing money is not good, we're going to blow bubbles, we're never going to be able to undo this. I tweeted this morning. And so he knew that this is exactly what they're doing and they'd never be able to undo it. Yeah. But do you sit down and go, do we want a stock market crash to deal with as well with all this other shit we're dealing with?
Yeah.
Who cares if the stock market's at all-time highs? It's only one step away from giving people UBI because everyone's got this in their retirement account and you've got boomers retiring. So I think they're probably just going to jack the stock market 7 or 8% a year, 10% in perpetuity. Like, why wouldn't you if you were there?
Real production is cratered. It's continuing to crater, and the ripple effects are going to reverberate for that same period. And I don't know how long they can keep up the facade. I think that risks bringing the house of cards down. So,
of course it does. But in Japan, they own 80 or 90% of the ETFs.
They do.
I mean, Hertz is bankrupt and they're trying to sell $500 million of shares saying that they're worthless. I mean, you can say it's a facade, but it is happening right now. And if the Fed start buying stocks, then we're in Japan where they end up owning all the stocks. So who cares? Nothing has a price.
Well, they end up nationalizing all these companies is really what I've been talking about. And then we end up with, we start heading down the road of the Venezuelan failed state or any of the other number of examples where they come in and nationalize everything.
Well, they already own all the mortgage-backed securities still from the .com.
Yeah.
From the GFC.
From the housing. Yeah.
Now they're starting to buy corporate bonds
Mm-hmm.
and then shares. Like, do the Fed just end up owning everything? And
Well,
you're giving people UBI? Like,
Goldman came out and said that the CLOs are not a problem, Alex. So you're being paranoid there for sure. Because if Goldman says it, you can trust them.
What's funny? I did a video about the CLOs and about the oil and gas industry in particular, and said, you know what, like, this is so bad now. The Fed are going to have no choice but to buy it. And 12 hours later, they started that program.
Yeah. It's getting so easy to call because they're trapped. They're boxed in this corner. They have no choice but to just say yes. It's like, it's yes or financial Armageddon. Which one do you want? And they're just going to print us into the ground, I think.
And you just wonder, do they know that things are bad, but like, to what degree? If you get a chance, watch the interviews I do with economist Steve Keen. So he basically says that economic models are just broken, but none of them want to admit it because they all rock up to their meetings with their suits and ties and their degrees, and are you going to unwind like
we're the
all
experts.
that and admit you're wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you going to keep getting your salary and being wealthy and just letting it go on someone else's
ride it
watch?
into the ground is what they're going to do. I mean, we, as an activist, we would talk to police about we try and draw the parallels between prohibition of alcohol and prohibition of cannabis. And we'd ask them, like, how do you think history is going to look back on this? Are you going to be in the right here? What about in the context of slavery? And like, they would always go, well, that was a different time, Sam. That's not today. And we would always walk away from those conversations saying, you know what? Their paycheck depends on them not understanding that. So it's like, there's nothing you can say.
It's the same in so many instances. You can say that about marijuana, psychedelics that have been studied again.
MAPS,
I could find you two leading heart surgeons, and one will tell you that cholesterol's bad and the statins and all the cholesterol drugs are the most important in the world. Another will tell you that all that's BS and cholesterol doesn't cause heart disease, it's sugar and inflammation and diet and other things. And they both can argue black and blue. They can both point out studies that back up their opinion. And so at the end of the day, you say, well, what makes anything true? Like what you believe and what the laws are and what's real and what's not.
Yeah. And in the US, it comes down to, well, what is the AMA's position, or what is the World Health Organization's position? And those organizations are so corrupt and so far gone here, at least, that it's just like,
Have you seen the video I did with, it was called Pharmacist and Doctor Exposed, Big Food.
I think I did. Yeah. You sent me that one to watch. I watched it. Yeah.
So a personal friend of mine who's a bit older, he's a diabetic surgeon. So he was cutting off people's fingers and toes that are so bad from diabetes that they've lost, the sugars kill all the vascular extremities. And then they'd go into hospital after surgery and they've been getting fed ice cream and orange juice and sugar. And he's like, these are diabetics, just stop. And he pushed up against big food and they got rid of his medical license, and then he fought them and won. So this is what you're pushing up against in the big pharma world, amongst everything else. But
crazy,
mate, I've got to go soon. It's been over an hour, but any final thoughts? That's been such a good chat.
Can we hit Lightning Network and Liquid real quick? And I'll give you my real fast take on that. I watched this video from Decentralized Thought. I'll send it to you to watch afterwards. And it just points out the routing through the Lightning Network. Today it works on a phone because it's small, but it's not going to scale past 100,000 channels. And you even have the Lightning Network developers admitting that a while back, a couple of years ago. Liquid, you talked about for moving money between exchanges. Today it works, but everybody's going to want to move in the same direction where the arbitrage opportunity is. They're going to have to go back and hit the public chain to rebalance if they don't get the reverse opportunity and people wanting to move it back. And, you have to have, and then there's the issue of the returns on Lightning Network. The company that staked $4 million and made $200, that's pitiful in an age of DeFi where you can get at least 5%. So to me, that's a non-starter for a solution, and I think it's doomed to fail. What do you say to that?
I mean, when the different universities were booting up the internet it was a huge cost, and you could say it's not economic for them to do it. So there's a little bit of the experimentation, the passionate maximalists, and even people like myself that aren't Bitcoin maximalists, but there's going to be people that always use it and try and help bootstrap the network, even if it's not economic. The routing is something that I'm not an expert on this, but that's where I do see a lot of potential. So if you want to send someone $100 and there's no channel, you can use 10 channels that have a $10 capacity and do smart routing. So there's a lot of things coming to try and solve these problems.
Okay. I want to send you the 2 videos that I did. I took and kind of ripped Andreas a new one again with a Bitcoin video. And I found in the process 2 videos about Lightning Network that really do a beautiful job of laying out the issues. And, you know, I'm going to disagree with you strongly on this one. I think today we have a situation where, you know, a business, there's a charity running these networks that are operating masquerading as a business. And I just don't see them being economically viable when you take into account a 5% return on the staked assets, when you take into account network fees that are not what they are today, but what they will be with mass adoption, and a Lightning network that requires processing capabilities far exceeding a cell phone. I mean, we're talking, you know, high-end server when you get to a node count that's in the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands.
I'm not that bullish on Lightning. It's fallen behind.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's why I think Ethereum can scale Bitcoin. We've already got wrapped Bitcoin taking off. $100 million, I think we've hit in the first couple of weeks of ERC20 versions of Bitcoin that are pegged either decentrally or by a centralized company like BitGo are doing the pegging for you and custody it. And all the flavors in between of REN, wrapped, T Bitcoin, IM Bitcoin. So you've heard all these there's different pegged, and that's what we're experimenting with. So maybe Ethereum, and I know XRP can as well.
Yes.
You can put other assets on these different ledgers. So other ledgers are going to maybe scale Bitcoin.
Okay, I can agree with that. All right, cool. I'm going to stick around, answer some questions from the live stream. I appreciate you joining. This was a fun discussion. I always enjoy it, Alex. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me on, Sam. I've had a heap of fun as well, so I hope you guys got some value out of that, and we'll do it again in future.
Sure they did. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Have a good night or afternoon.
See you, mate.
Okay. Hold on. Let me get to a full screen there. All right. I think I just need to leave that up, and I will throw up the questions here. If you guys have questions about that discussion, we talked about a lot of stuff there. I think it was interesting. Throw those out in the comments. Let me make sure we're still streaming. Oh yeah, there you go. Alex is awesome. Certainly he has his head screwed on. Yeah. Smart guy. Very, very smart guy. That's why we've, kind of kept in touch. Is a DEX market maker, or is it automated? So a DEX is a decentralized exchange. It's basically a smart contract platform that's decentralized, meaning it's residing on the blockchain, as I understand it. Alex could probably answer that a little better, but let me show you. I used a DEX. This is Kyber Swap. This is how I did my RSR purchase. Oh, good Lord. It's going to make me go through. So basically, what do you want? Bicycles, you bastard. Okay, there's your bike. Oh, God. Hold on. More bikes. Okay, leave me alone. Oh, good Lord. Okay, here it is right here. So the way this worked, really, really clever. I had to get some Ethereum and move it to my ledger. And then I selected the token I want, and there are loads here. Okay. And I picked, RSR, but there it is right there. And I said, I want to move like 2 Ethereum. That would give me just 55,000 RSR. And then I click swap now. And then you see down here, these are your hardware wallets. So I literally plugged my hardware wallet in. It downloaded a smart contract data to the hardware wallet, executed the trade. There was no middleman, no exchange that I had to go onto. And the reason that I was here in the first place is because the U.S. exchanges don't have this token, and there's some that are overseas, but they block U.S. residents because of the crappy laws and this and that, and this totally skirts that. So that was one of the things that really kind of opened my eyes to, I think, what's happening and what's underway here, and why I think. You guys know what I think about Ripple and the whole banking system and the corruption, everything that we just talked about there. This is powerful. Like, sure, it's a company, KyberSwap, and it's a website and so forth, but eventually, the government's been trying to shut down websites and so forth for a long, long time, and they have not been able to do it. And the world's a big place with a lot of internet connections, going around. So like I could see this becoming a force to reckon with. I don't think it's going to replace the Binances and stuff of the world, but I think this is, and I still think this has a ways to go before it becomes like a consumer friendly pattern. I mean, I can't see my mom coming in and using this, but he also showed me this one right here, which is 1inch .exchange, and same thing here. So, say 3 Ethereum, that'd give you 83,000 RSR. And what it's doing here, these are all different DEXes. So the one that we were just on was Kyber, and there's Uniswap version 2 is another good one. And what it's doing is comparing the rates and the liquidity of all of these. So he was talking about liquidity sourcing. And you can see these down here don't have RSR. These do, and it ranks them by the trade. So Kyber that I used was actually way more expensive, or not way more, but a much more expensive than Uniswap version 2, which would have been the one that I should have used. But like, this is brilliant because it's like the comparison shopping apps that we had back in the 90s and early 2000s. Okay, today it's all Amazon, but years ago we used to have, all of these little browser plugins and various things where you would go out and find the best price for this item kind of thing. Well, that's where DeFi is. And so it's it's all happening right out of the Ledger wallet. There's no third party overseeing the trade. It's a smart contract. That's the whole idea here. And it's really powerful. And I tweeted out about how what we talked about in the beginning with Alex, how this could really be a threat to what Ripple's doing. And not because Ripple hasn't created a great product and checked all the boxes and so forth. They've been pushing and pushing and pushing, and the banks have been dragging their feet. The governments have been dragging their feet, and the anarchists of the world, the cyberpunks and so forth, they're not dragging their feet. They're moving full steam ahead with solutions like these that subvert all the KYC, all the AML, and they could care less about any of that. You want to swap tokens? Okay, here, we'll do it all on the blockchain in a way, in a system that's anti-fragile, meaning if the government, the state comes in and attacks it, they cut the leg off the starfish. Well, great, government. Now you have 2 starfish to deal with. You want to try that again? That's the idea here. And there is no, and this is kind of what Alex is pointing to, there is no solution for the state to this problem. And I think where we differ is on the speed at which this will happen. I think Ripple's got to, not so much Ripple, but the banks and the whole system has got to get their act together. If they don't, these guys are going to start eating their lunch. Simple as that. Now, they're not enterprise ready. They're not commercial, but they're working towards that. So, okay, let's dip back in here. Let me see what you guys have for questions. Chainlink is, as I understand it, it's an oracle. I meant to ask Alex about that. There's always so much to talk about with him. He is not, he's not on board with their value proposition. So like he doesn't hold Chainlink. He's not, I think, a big fan of it. But that's essentially, as I understand it, they're creating a way to get pricing data that's reliable pricing data for these DeFi, for these various platforms. Swift is one of them, and so forth, to get a true true price that these bigger, more complex products can depend on, so that they're not being manipulated or gamed. Okay, so 1:21 p.m. here in Australia. Yeah, it's his lunchtime. So, okay, what did he mean by not seeing the value proposition of XRP? I think it's just that DeFi is going to come in and subvert the banking system rather than I don't think, like, we could walk through the value proposition and I know there's things he'd be like, oh, okay, I see that. Okay, I see it being used there. And in the end, you know, he talked about the wrap Bitcoin on Ethereum, and he says, oh, and I know you can do the same thing with the XRP ledger. I think he would agree there. I think what he's saying, though, as far as the Ripple use case, is exactly what I'm kind of coming around to. The clock's ticking. They are losing ground to this DeFi, trustless, leaderless financial system that's emerging, that's going to be a paradigm shift over the paradigm shift that crypto and the global financial system, it's like they're here, DeFi's up here, and you know, are we going to go from, and we're down here, are we going to go from here to here or here to here? And that's the discussion I think that we were having at a very high level. Is freeing up Vostro not enough value, not valuable enough in US dollars? What did I misunderstand? So yeah, no, all that's still there, but we're talking about more of an abandonment of the existing processes and mindset into DeFi just being such a force to be reckoned with that everybody has to adopt or die. Okay. I'm going to leave off Holochain. Let's stick to questions about what we talked about. Let's see. I don't think David's just, I didn't read that. David Schwartz tweeted out about how he's always willing to consider that he's wrong. And, you know, I don't think that was depressing. I think that's a very smart perspective, is to always be willing to admit that, hey, I might have this wrong, and be open to possibilities. That's why Alex and I have this exchange, and why I'm not like Tone Vays about XRP, and why I'm willing to criticize Ripple. I'm willing to criticize Brad or Ashish Burla or any of these guys, because I'm open to them being wrong. I'm open to me being wrong. I've been wrong before. You know, you guys know that there's a lot of you that like and listen to me because I'm willing to throw everything out and like, okay, I've got new information. To me, this changes everything. So everything I said, I'm throwing out, and we're going to rebuild and put the pieces in that fit. So, and I think that's what David's really saying. So, no, you can't get in. We don't talk about Fight Club. Sam, do you now agree this is becoming a foot race? I'm not sure exactly what you mean by foot race, but I'm going to say I think so. Yeah. It's a matter of either the banks get their shit together and the governments get their shit together, and, you know, they're showing right now a lot of ineptitude and just incredible stupidity, I think is how I would describe it. Like they're sitting in their ivory tower. hey, this is our turf, our domain. We'll do it on our schedule. We'll do it when we think. We don't really care what you say or what you want, and we'll decide. And when we're ready, we'll let you know. And like they don't see whatever the good analogy is, the explosives being placed at the base of their tower. And that's what this discussion was really about. I think this was excellent. So in that terms, is it a foot race? Yes. DeFi is moving forward. I think there's still little leagues compared to the major leagues, to use a baseball analogy. They have a lot of growing to do before they're going to mount any kind of serious challenge. I think Alex would kind of beg to differ a little bit on that. And I think his position was much more that, well, it 10x'd over the last few years and it's 10xing. And when you 10x repeatedly like that, it gets real big, real fast. I think what that position is not taking into account is that you have to develop the applications, the interfaces, the mindset of consumers. I don't think it's as simple as giving them a new app. I just don't. I think that's oversimplifying things. For some people in these depressed countries around the world, yes. But in the developed world where the money is today, no. I think that's where we would probably diverge a little bit. I've done that with Atomic Wallet, wanted some Bitcoin, Diamond, sent XRP in exchange for BCD. Yeah, it's a cool setup. So, okay, let's see. At the end, I believe regulations will matter the most. Governments will most likely try to control any dollar-based stablecoins. Yeah, very possible. And of course, a corporation is begging for permission to operate from the state. So if they say, thou shall not use DeFi, well, what's going to happen? They're not going to use DeFi. Do you think the days of Ripple and XRP are numbered? No new all-time high? No, I think, we're talking about one use case out of a dozen, right? There's still web monetization. There's still gaming. There's still putting other assets, issuances on the XRP ledger. So yeah, no, it doesn't. I don't think XRP is doomed or anything like that. I think there's still a lot of stuff happening that will continue to happen on XRP because it has the best fundamentals of everything, and it's got those today. It's not a year away. It's not years away from scaling. It scales today. It doesn't have a smart contracts. Ripple's got to get their shit together in that regards and get something out there with smart contracts and get that development going. Now, Xspring, they bought some of those companies to do some of this DeFi stuff last year. And so that's in progress. We just haven't heard any of what they're doing. So, or I haven't seen it. I'm sure there's people out there that are digging into that stuff. Okay. Me and my friend are getting a Hookers, Lambos, and Blow t-shirt. Sam, what would happen for us to put XRP aside because it doesn't make sense in the new long run? John, I'm not sure what you're asking there. What would it take for us to put XRP aside because it doesn't make sense in the long run? I've stopped buying it, and I said this a while ago, and I'm kind of diversifying into some of these other tokens and things, but I'm holding on to my bags. So, because I think there's still a lot of incredible potential there. So, will Ripple going public have any effect on the XRP price? I seriously doubt it. So, okay, guys, there we go. Don't be embarrassed because you've been fooled by XRP. I'm not embarrassed and I haven't been fooled. I think that's a really ignorant thing to say. So, all right, there we go. Love this. I always like talking to Alex. He's got a very similar worldview and is very well. It keeps abreast of all the current events and things that are unfolding. And I think we have a very similar mindset and just different areas of focus. So guys, appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you didn't watch the video on the reserve and that whole thing, go watch that, because I think that has what really caught my attention is the backers. And I think that's going to be a big project. I really do. And I think it's going to get a lot of attention over the next few years, next couple years, I would say. So I think that could be a potentially really good investment. And I actually have more reserve RSRs than I do XRP. Of course, the dollar value is vastly different. So, all right, there you go. That's it. I'm out of here. We'll catch y'all next video. Patreon.com/To The Lifeboats. Thank you to my patrons who make all of this stuff possible and let me head off in the middle of the day for a couple hours to go surfing. Catch y'all next video, guys. Thanks.